You know that kind of family barbecue where everything looks perfect until someone opens their mouth? That's the Keller family for you. Big house near the Outer Banks, a grill that could feed a small army, country music humming through a Bluetooth speaker, and just enough beer to turn small talk into verbal combat. Tara, my older sister, was in her usual form, loud, shiny, and 2 drinks away from declaring herself the queen of family gatherings. I was at the picnic table, nursing a cold soda, wishing I'd volunteered for deployment instead of showing up here. She spotted me, grinning like she'd just found her favorite target. "So what, you just teach flight sims now, right?" she called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. I looked up, slow and calm. "No," I said. "I fly." That earned me a wave of laughter from around the grill. Even Dad chuckled, the kind of laugh that says, "Come on, don't take yourself so seriously." Tara wasn't done. "Oh yeah? Fly where? Between the coffee machine and the break room?" Everyone laughed harder. Mom smiled that helpless diplomatic smile that said, "Please don't start something." I didn't say another word. I just kept my eyes on my plate, pushing coleslaw around with a fork. The silence bothered them more than any comeback could. Across the yard, Blake, my brother-in-law, stood next to the grill flipping burgers. He didn't join the laughter. He just gave me a brief look, that quiet Navy SEAL kind of look, the kind that measures people before deciding if they're worth listening to. I raised my soda in his direction, half salute, half sarcasm. He nodded back. No smile, no words, just acknowledgement. It was more than anyone else had given me all evening. Dad shouted from his lawn chair. "Monica, you ever gonna settle down and get a real job? You've been chasing planes since college." I smiled, thin and practiced. "Dad, I already have one." "Yeah, but one that keeps you home," he said. "Something safer." That line hit harder than it should have. Safer, in Dad speak, meant something I can understand. The conversation drifted back to Blake's recent SEAL training rotation in Florida. Everyone wanted to hear about the real action. Nobody asked me about my work. Nobody ever did. Tara leaned across the table, her voice soft but sharp. "You know, I think deep down you like being mysterious. All those classified things you can't talk about makes it sound bigger than it is." I smiled at her like I'd been trained to smile at interrogation officers, polite, steady, unreadable. You'd be surprised what fits under bigger than it is. She rolled her eyes. "See? You always talk like that, half spy, half poet." "Guess it runs in the family," I said. "One of us talks too much, the other talks too little." "How?" The tension hung there for a second, quiet enough to hear the waves rolling in from the beach. Blake turned off the grill and set the spatula down. I saw him glance at Tara again, just a flicker, like he was debating if he should say something. But he didn't. Not yet. Mom tried to smooth it over, bless her heart. "You two are just different, that's all. Tara's the talker, Monica's the doer." That earned another chuckle from Dad. "Yeah. If she's really flying those planes, she's doing plenty." "Dad," Tara cut in, "she probably means drones." More laughter. I finished my soda, tossed it in the bin, and stood up. "I'll go get some air." Tara smirked. "You do that, Top Gun." That one got a big laugh. The kind that echoes in your head even after you walk away. Down by the beach, the air smelled like salt and smoke. The sunset burned orange across the water, fading into a soft blue haze. I kicked off my shoes and let the waves lap at my feet. I wasn't angry. Not really. I'd lived through worse. Combat zones didn't always involve gunfire. Sometimes they were just picnic tables with too much beer and too many opinions. I stood there a while, letting the noise fade behind me. My reflection rippled in the wet sand, barefoot, calm, the quiet sister everyone could safely ignore. That was fine. Quiet had always been safer. When you serve in the Navy long enough, you learn that silence is its own kind of armor. But even armor wears down when it's hit in the same place over and over. The breeze shifted, carrying the muffled sound of laughter from the yard. I could picture Tara at the center of it, holding court, entertaining the family, proud of her SEAL husband and her perfect suburban life. She'd always been the one who shined in a crowd. I'd always been the one in the corner, the one people forgot to introduce, the one who didn't need applause. But that night, something felt different. The laughter didn't sting, it just sounded small. Behind me, the screen door creaked open. Blake's voice carried over the wind. "You good out here?" I turned. "I'm fine." He walked a few steps closer, arms crossed, still wearing his SEAL team t-shirt. "You don't say much, do you?" "Only when it matters." He gave a small nod. "Fair enough." Ard tet. We stood there for a moment. The kind of silence that wasn't awkward, just full of things neither of us felt like explaining. He looked back toward the house. You know she doesn't mean half of what she says. I know, I said. She just doesn't know what she's saying. He almost smiled. You're a lot like some of the pilots I've met. They don't brag either. They don't have to. That one made me look at him. You've met pilots? Yeah, a few. The good ones never talk about it. I guess I'm in good company then. He nodded once, then started walking back. You should come up. Burgers are getting cold. I'll be there. I watched him disappear back into the glow of the porch lights. The sound of laughter followed him, so normal, so familiar, it almost felt fake. I stayed where I was, watching the tide rise and fall. The water tugged at the sand around my feet like it was trying to pull something loose. A part of me wanted to stay quiet forever. Another part, the one that used to fly through storm clouds at midnight, was getting restless. There's a line they tell you in flight school. You can't stay grounded forever. Standing there under that fading orange sky, I started to believe it again. Somewhere in that house, my sister was still laughing. And for the first time in years, I didn't care. I looked at the horizon, whispered to no one in particular, next time, I won't stay quiet. The wind carried the words away, swallowed by the sound of waves and distant voices. It was just noise now until it wasn't. And when the tide rolled back, I knew something in me had already shifted, even if no one else noticed. The next morning, the smell of coffee hit before I opened my eyes. My apartment in Virginia Beach was quiet, clean, and exactly the opposite of last night's chaos. No shouting, no music, no laughter cutting like a knife. Just the hum of the fridge and the muffled sound of jets from Nassau Oceana. I pulled on my flight suit out of habit, even though I wasn't scheduled to fly that day. There's something about the weight of the fabric, the patch over the shoulder, the faint smell of fuel, it's like armor. Civilian clothes never feel right anymore. The phone buzzed. Text from my flight lead, Lieutenant Renee Cortez. Rennie. Morning, Keller. You seeing this weather? IFR check might be cancelled. Me. Figures. I could use a quiet day. Rennie. Since when do you like quiet? Me. Since family barbecues started counting as combat zones. She replied with a laughing emoji, then a second text. Rennie. You should tell them sometime. About 2020. I stared at that for a long moment, then set the phone down. Tell them? Sure. Hey Dad, remember when you said I should find a real job? Funny story, I already had one when I helped keep a Navy SEAL team from crashing into the Pacific. Yeah, that would go over great at the dinner table. People love heroes, as long as they're someone else. I brewed another coffee and opened the file folder that lived in my desk drawer, the one I wasn't supposed to have. The label said, Operation Revenant, but half the lines were blacked out. There was my call sign, Night Warden, stamped on a line under Aviation Liaison, Emergency Coordination. No mention of names, no public record. Just a few lines about maintaining communication integrity under zero visibility conditions. The date, the 18th of March 2020. The night the storm hit off San Clemente Island. Back then I was still green, third year in. Still thinking my job was just to keep the comms clear. That night changed everything. The memory came in flashes. Not cinematic, not clean. Just sound and motion. The radio screeching through static. We've lost visual. Bird 2 down, repeat, bird 2 down. Now. Another voice strained. We've got 6 in the water, need coordinates. Night Warden, do you copy? My voice steady somehow. Copy. Hold vector 240. Follow beacon on my mark. 2 hours later, every single one of them made it back alive. I didn't see their faces. Didn't get a medal. Didn't even get to debrief in person. Just a handshake from the CO the next day and an offhand comment. Good work, Keller. You kept your cool. That was it. They promoted me 6 months later, but the mission stayed sealed. Sometimes, I wondered if the people I saved even knew who I was. The sound of jets outside pulled me back to the present. I poured more coffee and looked at the folder again. I wasn't supposed to keep it, but throwing it away felt like erasing something that actually mattered. My neighbors probably thought I was just another base employee, maybe logistics, maybe admin. I didn't correct them. It was easier that way. At the base, people still called me Keller, like always. No titles, no ceremony, just another cog in the machine that keeps everything flying. I liked it that way. Until last night. Last night, my sister's laughter had peeled something open. It wasn't anger. It was that quiet ache that comes from being seen your whole life but never recognized. Later that afternoon, I headed to the hangar anyway. The air inside was thick with jet fuel and humidity. The T-45 trainer glistened under the overhead lights, the red and white paint like fresh blood and bone. "Didn't think you were flying today," Renee called from behind me. "Just needed the view," I said. She walked up beside me, sunglasses hanging from her collar. "You look like someone who's thinking too loud." "Family weekend," I said. "You ever feel like the job makes you invisible?" Renee snorted. "Honey, the job is invisible. Nobody outside the wire ever understands it. You tell them you fly, they picture Top Gun. You tell them what you really do, they stop listening." "Yeah," I said. "That tracks." She tilted her head, curious. "You still thinking about that mission? The one nobody talks about?" I nodded. "Sometimes I wonder if they even remember it." "They remember," she said. "The ones who live through nights like that always remember, even if they don't know your name." I wanted to believe her. Later, back in the locker room, I sat on the bench staring at the patch on my sleeve, Navy, Fleet Air Training Wing. It didn't feel like enough. I thought about Blake for a moment, the way he'd looked at me when Tara was making her jokes. He wasn't laughing. He'd seen that look before on people who've been in real danger. Maybe he recognized something I wasn't saying. That idea stuck with me all evening. When I left the base, the sun was setting again, that golden half-light painting everything the color of memory. Traffic on Shore Drive crawled. Tourists heading to the boardwalk. Families holding ice cream cones. Ordinary life going on as if the world wasn't full of ghosts and secrets. I rolled down the window. The smell of salt water hit, sharp and clean. For a second, it almost smelled like that night off San Clemente. Back home, I dropped my keys on the counter and turned on the TV. News anchors talked about storms, politics, and baseball scores. Normal noise. But somewhere inside me, a thought whispered louder than all of it. You can't stay invisible forever. I opened my laptop. The Navy intranet portal blinked on the screen, the login field waiting. My cursor hovered over the search bar. Out of habit, I typed 2 words. SEAL coordination. A list of upcoming joint exercises appeared. Norfolk, Little Creek, and one right here in Virginia Beach. And then I saw it. Instructor listed, Lieutenant Siamdar Blake Renshaw. I leaned back in my chair, letting out a low breath that turned into a half smile. Small world. Part of me wanted to close the laptop and forget I'd seen it. Another part, the reckless part that used to fly through storm clouds, didn't. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe it was timing. Or maybe, after years of being the quiet one, the universe was lining up the pieces just to see what I'd do next. I shut the laptop, poured the last of the coffee, and looked out the window at the fading sky. The hum of distant jets drifted through the air again, steady and familiar. There's a calm that comes before turbulence. Pilots can feel it. The air gets still, too still, like it's holding its breath. That's what this felt like. I wasn't planning anything dramatic. No revenge, no speeches, just readiness. If life wanted to test me again, I'd be ready to take the controls. The phone buzzed one more time. Renee again. Rennie. Briefing moved to next week. You free this weekend? M.E. Family's doing another cookout. Rennie. You going? May. Yeah. Maybe it's time I stopped staying quiet. I set the phone down, the words still glowing on the screen. Outside, a jet thundered past, shaking the window for just a second. I didn't flinch. The wrench slipped from my hand and clanked against the concrete floor. I stared at the smear of grease on my palm, then wiped it on my coveralls. The air in Dad's boat repair shop always smelled like diesel and salt, familiar. Heavy. The same smell that clung to him even when he dressed up for church. Careful, kiddo, he said from the other side of the workbench. That's not a simulator joystick. You don't want to strip that bolt. Got it, I said. My voice came out steady, but something in me tightened. He didn't mean to sound like that, half joking, half dismissive, but he'd been talking to me that way my whole life. Frank Keller was the kind of man who measured worth in calluses and scars. In his eyes, you either worked with your hands or you weren't really working at all. He leaned over the engine block, wiping sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. You know, Blake's been offered an instructor post down in Little Creek, training SEAL recruits. That's the kind of job that makes a man's name. I set the wrench down. Good for him. Yeah, Dad said, missing the edge in my voice completely. You two should talk shop sometime. He knows discipline, you know structure. It'd be good for you. Good for me. That was his favorite phrase. Good for me to visit family more. Good for me to take a desk job. Good for me to smile more often. Tara's voice cut through the open bay door. Dad, Mom says the sandwiches are ready. End quote. She was standing there in sunglasses, holding her phone like it was part of her body. Even at a boatyard, she managed to look like a social media ad for coastal living. Hey, look at you, she said, pretending surprise. Didn't know Navy pilots got their hands dirty. I smiled without looking up. Sometimes engines and people both need tuning. Cute, she said. Still hiding behind those mysterious metaphors, huh? I tightened the last bolt until it squeaked, then said, I'd rather hide behind something real. She scoffed and walked off, her sandals clicking against the concrete. Dad shook his head, nodded her at me. You don't have to bite back every time she talks. She's not 12 anymore, Dad. I'm just saying, he muttered. You're both grown women. She's proud of you, in her own way. Right, I said, between the jokes and the sarcasm. End quote. He didn't reply, just went back to his tools. The clinking sound filled the silence like punctuation marks in a sentence no one wanted to finish. I cleaned my hands, grabbed my cap, and stepped outside. The late afternoon sun bounced off rows of fishing boats waiting for repairs. The sign over the door read Keller and Sons Marine. Repair, a name that had never been updated after Mom had 2 daughters instead. Tara's SUV was parked by the curb, spotless as always. She was leaning against it, scrolling her phone. You still mad? She asked without looking up. I wasn't mad. Could have fooled me. Guess that's easier than understanding me. She finally looked at me. You always say stuff like that. Do you even hear yourself? I do, I said. Every time someone laughs like I don't belong. She frowned, as if I'd said something unfair. Come on, it's not like that. We just joke. You joke, I said. I listen. Vet. There was a pause long enough for both of us to realize that nothing we were saying was new. Then she smirked, trying to brush it off. You know, if you really wanted respect, maybe pick something people actually understand, like law or medicine. I smiled just enough to make her uncomfortable. You want people to understand you, Tara. I just want to do my job. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't have a comeback. She got in the car and drove off, leaving a faint trail of perfume and irritation. Mom's voice called from the porch. You two fight again? Define fight, I said, walking up the steps. Mom sighed. You girls used to be so close. We were close until we started growing in different directions. She smiled softly, the kind of motherly smile that tries to patch cracks with optimism. Your father just wants peace. You know how proud he is of you. I know what he's proud of, I said. It's not the same thing. She didn't argue, just handed me a plate. Turkey sandwich, too much mayo, same as always. Eat something, it'll help. Food never fixed what words broke. But I took the sandwich anyway, because arguing with Mom was like arguing with gravity. After dinner, I drove home with the windows down. The air smelled like salt and oil and everything that reminded me of childhood. For years, I'd convinced myself I didn't need their approval. But there's a difference between not needing something and never wanting it. I parked by the beach, just outside my apartment complex. A couple of teenagers were setting off fireworks too early, ignoring the wind warnings. Sparks fizzled out before reaching the surf. It made me think of how words work in my family: loud, brief, mostly for show. When my phone rang, I almost didn't answer. It was Renee again. Hey Keller. You sound like someone who's thinking dangerous thoughts. End of 46. Just family noise, I said. She laughed. The most dangerous kind. There was a pause before she asked. You ever tell them what happened off San Clemente? No, I said. You ever going to? I thought about Dad wiping grease on his shirt, Tara laughing with her phone in hand, Mom pretending not to notice the tension. No, I said again. Renee didn't push. She just said, sometimes silence is the only way to win. Yeah, I said. But sometimes it just means nobody knows you were in the fight. We hung up. I sat there listening to the waves, feeling the same ache I'd felt at the barbecue, the mix of pride and loneliness that comes from being invisible by choice. A truck pulled up beside me in the parking lot. Blake stepped out, still in casual clothes, carrying a bag of groceries. He spotted me and walked over. Didn't think I'd run into you here, he said. I live nearby. He nodded, studying me. You okay? The other night looked rough. I'm fine. He leaned on the railing, looking out at the water. You know, I've seen that look before. What look? The one where someone's holding it together so tight they might snap. Occupational hazard, I said. He smiled a little. Guess we both know that one. For a minute, we just listened to the ocean. Then he said, Tara doesn't always think before she talks. You probably figured that out a few decades ago. End quote. Pretty sure I was the first one to notice. She means well, in her own loud way. So I've heard. He laughed quietly. For what it's worth, I don't think you're the quiet one. You're just patient. That's one word for it. He looked at me, and there was something thoughtful behind his eyes, something I couldn't read. You ever serve near San Clemente? My chest tightened just a little. Why? I trained off that coast once. We had a night op go bad. Someone on the other end of the radio kept us from losing the whole team. I never forgot that voice. I forced a small smile. Sounds like they did their job. Yeah, he said. They did. He didn't press further, just nodded and said goodnight. I watched him walk back to his truck, headlights flaring briefly before disappearing into the dark. The sound of the ocean filled the silence again. I stood there, hands in my pockets, watching the tide crawl up the sand. It wasn't the first time someone almost recognized me, but it was the first time I didn't look away. The hum of engines used to be background noise. Now, it lived in my blood. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still hear that night radio static, distant thunder, a storm tearing across the Pacific like it had a grudge. I didn't talk about it, not even to the people who'd understand. But silence has a way of leaking out through dreams. That night off, San Clemente still played like a recording that refused to stop. We'd been flying coordination for a seal extraction that went sideways when weather turned ugly. 2 birds were already grounded. The third, their evac chopper, was fighting crosswinds strong enough to snap rotor blades. Back then, I wasn't Commander Keller. Just Night Warden, a voice behind a comms panel, trying to keep a group of men alive in a storm that didn't care. The radio hissed and cracked, drowning half of what they said. Bird 1 to command. Visibility 0, requesting immediate vector update. Copy, Bird 1, I said, fingers flying over the console. You're drifting north of safe zone. Adjust to 240. Lightning hit the water miles away, but the glow made it look close enough to swallow them. Someone shouted through the noise, panic bleeding through discipline. We're losing power engine 2 red, Bird 1 going down. End quote. I could feel my pulse matching the warning lights. Negative, Bird 1, hold altitude. Divert fuel to engine 1, maintain, heading 235. You'll see my flare on your right in 20 seconds. My CO turned toward me. You're lighting a flare in that mess? You'll get yourself cooked. Then they'll know where home is, I said, and hit the switch. Through the rain, I ran toward the edge of the tarmac, flare gun in one hand, headset still crackling in the other. The wind tore at my hood. I fired, once red streak cutting through black sky. Seconds later, a rotor shadow appeared. Then another. 2 choppers, fighting gravity, limping home. When the first one landed, the crews stumbled out, soaked, shaking, but alive. One of the SEALs, helmet off, bleeding from the temple, looked right at me before the medics rushed him inside. Who the hell are you? He shouted over the rain. Night Warden, I said. He nodded once. We owe you beers for life. Win. They didn't even know my real name. The debrief next morning was short, clinical, and mostly about what not to say. The operation was scrubbed as equipment failure. Everyone lived, which meant it was good enough for paperwork. But what stuck with me wasn't the storm or the orders. It was that one SEAL's face, the gratitude mixed with exhaustion. I'd memorized it without meaning to. For years, I'd wondered if I'd ever see that expression again. Now I was starting to think I already had. Blake's eyes in the moonlight at the beach, they'd carried the same weight, the same quiet recognition. He might not remember me, but something in him knew. The next few days blurred into base routine. Training schedules, maintenance briefings, endless PowerPoint slides, the kind of structured noise that fills time but not meaning. Then came the call. Commander Keller, report to Hangar 6 for joint training support, the dispatcher said. I walked in, already expecting chaos. There always is when the SEALs share space with pilots. The air smelled like jet fuel, sweat, and competition. And there he was, Blake Renshaw, in instructor gear, clipboard in hand, voice calm but commanding. All right, folks, he said. This is about coordination. When things go south, we rely on comms, not heroics. You break formation, people die. His tone was clipped, professional. But when his eyes caught mine across the hangar, something flickered. Not recognition, just a pause. The same kind of pause soldiers get when instinct tells them they've seen this ghost before. After the briefing, he came over. "Didn't expect to see you in my class." "Didn't expect to be here," I said. He smiled slightly. "You Navy or Air Wing?" "Navy." "Flight coordination. Ever handle live ops?" I met his gaze. "Once or twice." He nodded. "You sound like you've seen things go bad and still kept your voice steady." "Maybe I just fake it better." He chuckled, low and tired. "That's half the job." We spent the rest of the day running simulations, mock rescues, radio drills, coordination exercises. It was muscle memory for me, but hearing him issue commands triggered something deeper. Every tone, every phrase, it was the same cadence from that night years ago. At one point, during a break, he said, "You know, I always tell my recruits there's one rule in chaos: if the person on the radio sounds calm, you follow their voice. Doesn't matter what rank they are." End quote. "Smart rule," I said. "Learned it the hard way," he added. "Back in 2020. Storm off San Clemente. We lost visual. Nearly lost half the team. Someone on comms pulled us back in. Never even knew their name." My throat went dry, but I forced a steady tone. "Sounds like they did their job." "They did more than that," he said quietly. "They saved 6 families from getting folded flags." He didn't notice my hand tightening around the coffee cup. "You ever try to find out who it was?" I asked. He shook his head. "Classified, apparently. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be." Maybe. Later that night, I sat in my car outside the hangar long after the lights shut off. My reflection in the windshield looked calm, but my mind wasn't. There's a strange kind of loneliness that comes with being recognized only by your call sign. You spend years building a name, then one night makes it unmentionable. Back home, I opened the old folder again. Operation Revenant. The report didn't have names, but I'd memorized the mission code. SEAL Team Bravo 6, Operation Recovery Point. The signature at the bottom, Captain Roland Butler, commanding officer. And the lead field operative listed under him, Lieutenant Commodore Blake Renshaw. I exhaled, slow and deliberate. So it was him. He'd lived because of me. And now he was married to the woman who laughed the loudest when I got humiliated. Fate had a cruel sense of humor. But anger wasn't what I felt. It was something else, something colder, quieter, more precise. The next morning, Blake stopped by my station before another training run. "Hey Keller, you free for lunch?" He blinked. "Sure." We ended up at a diner near the base. No uniforms, just 2 people sitting across a sticky table with bad coffee. "So, your sister says you're the quiet type," he said. "She talks a lot." "She does," he said with a grin. "She's proud though. Told me you're the smartest one in the family." I snorted. "You believe that?" He shrugged. "Doesn't matter what I believe. I can tell you've earned your place. That's rare in any family." For a long second, we didn't speak. The silence wasn't awkward. It was recognition, without needing words. When he left to pay the check, I stared at the window's reflection. Behind the calm surface, my pulse had a steady rhythm, the same one from the cockpit, when everything depended on staying composed. I wasn't planning on telling him who I was. Not yet. Because if there's one thing military life teaches you, it's timing. And I could feel the timing shifting again, like air pressure before a storm. "Back outside," he said. "We're doing a family barbecue next week. You should come. Tara insists." I smiled. Just enough to hide what I was thinking. Wouldn't miss it. The sky above was cloudless, the kind that pretends it'll stay that way forever. But I knew better. The last time a storm changed my life, it came without warning. This time, I could feel it coming. The smell of grilled meat hit me before I even stepped through the gate. Different house, same chaos. Tara's backyard looked like something straight out of a home renovation ad: string lights, expensive patio furniture, and enough beer coolers to hydrate an entire platoon. Blake was at the grill, flipping steaks with that quiet focus he had. Tara fluttered around him, giving orders nobody asked for. I stood at the edge of the yard for a moment, scanning faces, cousins, neighbors, Blake's SEAL buddies. Everyone loud, tan, and sure of themselves. It was déjà vu. Different year, same script. Tara spotted me and waved, her smile too wide to be real. "Look who showed up. The mysterious pilot herself." I forced a grin. "You sound surprised." "Of course not," she said, walking over to hug me more for the audience than for affection. "We were just talking about you. Blake was saying how the Navy must keep you busy with... what was it again, honey?" Blake didn't answer right away. Operations support, he said finally, his tone even. She coordinates air routes. Tara laughed. See? I knew it was something like that. Fancy talk for traffic control, right? A few people chuckled. I smiled thinly. Sure. Let's go with that. Blake glanced at me, subtle, assessing. He didn't laugh. Across the table, my dad lifted his beer. You know, Monica, your sister says you've been avoiding the family lately. Too busy saving the world? Something like that, I said. He nodded, missing the point. Well, good to have you back. You're both doing great things. Tara's been running the accounting office. Blake's training the next generation of SEALs. Real family pride right there. I didn't correct him. Pride was something my family measured in noise. The louder you were, the more you cared. Half an hour later, the food hit the table, and the conversation turned to real military work, which, apparently, meant anything done by men. One of Blake's buddies, a burly guy named Hagen, leaned back in his chair and said, "No offense, Monica, but flying's gotta be easier than combat, right?" I set my fork down. Define easier. He laughed. You know, no bullets, no mud, no screaming drill sergeants. End quote. Just crosswinds, instrument failure, and a few dozen people depending on you not to die, I said calmly. The table went quiet for a second before Tara swooped in, laughing it off. She's kidding. Monica always sounds like she's in a movie. Blake didn't look amused. He said nothing, but his hand tightened around his glass. The tension hung there like humidity. I stood up. Excuse me, need some air. The porch was empty, except for the sound of waves in the distance. Same coast, same ocean that had once carried my voice through static to men fighting for their lives. I leaned against the railing, breathing through the heat building in my chest. I didn't want revenge. Not really. I just wanted the noise to stop. Behind me, the screen door creaked. Blake stepped out, quiet as always. You okay? He asked. Fine. He handed me a bottle of water. You sure? You looked about one comment away from flipping that table. I smirked. I've been through worse turbulence. He chuckled. Yeah, you have that look. The calm kind. The kind that only shows up after you've seen something real. A lot of people think they've seen something real, I said. He nodded slowly. Yeah, most of them are wrong. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. The sound of laughter drifted from inside, soft and fake. Finally, he said, You ever fly out of Naz Point, Mugu? The name hit like a jolt. Once or twice. Why? There was a storm there, 2020. Bad one. Our team went down off San Clemente. We almost didn't make it. Somebody on comms kept us alive that night. I looked at him. His voice had shifted lower, heavier. You ever find out who it was? He shook his head. No, we tried. Everything got classified. The CO told us to let it go. Did you? He smiled faintly. Not really. That voice stuck with me. Calm, confident, no hesitation. You don't forget something like that. I didn't answer. Inside, Tara's laugh rose above the music. Blake, we're doing pictures. He sighed and straightened up. You coming back in? In a minute. He nodded, hesitated, then said, You remind me of that voice. Just saying. I forced a laugh. Guess I have one of those faces or voices. When he went back inside, I let out the breath I'd been holding. The night wore on, the noise blending into static. Tara moved from table to table like a hostess running her own talk show. I stayed by the porch, pretending to check my phone. Then Evan, her 6-year-old, wandered over, holding a paper airplane. Aunt Monica, I made this one fly all the way to the fence? I crouched down beside him. That's pretty far. What's your secret? He grinned. You gotta throw it hard and don't blink. Good rule, I said. Mind if I test it? He handed me the plane. I adjusted the folds just a bit, then threw it. It sliced through the warm air clean and steady, landing halfway across the yard. Evan's eyes went wide. Whoa, he said. How'd you do that? Wind and patience, I said. Behind us, Tara's voice cut through the music. Monica, you're scaring him. It's just a toy. Evan frowned. She didn't scare me. I smiled at him. It's okay, kiddo. Your mom's just jealous. I get better mileage. That earned me a few chuckles from Blake's teammates, but not from Tara. She crossed her arms. Real mature. Guess it runs in the family, I said lightly. Her mouth opened, but before she could fire back, Blake's voice came from the grill. Food's getting cold. The tension snapped like a rubber band. People moved, plates clattered, conversation restarted. Later, after the plates were cleared, Tara started another round of drinks. Blake's teammates told war stories, some real, some clearly exaggerated. I listened quietly until one of them turned to me. "So, Monica," he said, "ever think of joining the real military?" The table laughed. Tara nearly spit out her wine. I looked at him evenly. "Remind me, what's the fake one called?" That shut him up, but Tara couldn't resist twisting the knife. "Relax. She's joking. She's not exactly the combat type." Blake's voice came low, calm, but sharp. "That's enough, Tara." She blinked, surprised. "What?" I was kidding. He didn't raise his voice, but the weight behind it silenced the table. "You don't joke about service you don't understand." The shift in the air was instant. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the crickets seemed to stop. Tara tried to laugh it off, but Blake wasn't looking at her anymore. His gaze was locked on me, steady, questioning, like he was piecing together a puzzle that suddenly made sense. Then he said quietly, "Revenant one." The world seemed to still. A beer can slip from someone's hand and rolled across the deck. Nobody spoke. I didn't confirm it, didn't deny it. I just met his eyes. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked shaken. "You were there," he said, almost under his breath. I didn't move. I was everywhere that night. Tara looked between us, confused. "What's going on?" Blake turned toward her slowly. His voice came out level, but cold. "Apologize." She frowned. "For what?" "For mocking the pilot who saved my team's lives." Her face drained of color. "You mean her?" He nodded once. "Her. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, it was clean, like the air after a storm. I stood up, smoothed my jacket, and said quietly, "Dinner was great, Tara. Really." Then I turned toward the porch. Behind me, the sound of the ocean rolled in with the wind, washing away everything that didn't matter. Tara's face froze like someone had just pulled the plug on her smile. The patio lights flickered against her expression, half disbelief, half embarrassment. The whole backyard had gone quiet except for the crackle of the grill. Blake's words still hung in the air. "Apologize." He didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. Every man there, every veteran, every cousin, every loudmouth heard the weight behind it. Tara blinked, trying to laugh it off. "Oh, come on, Blake, you're seriously doing this right now?" He turned to her, eyes level, jaw tight. "Right now." Someone coughed. No one else moved. She looked at me, searching for backup, maybe an out. I didn't give her one. I just stood there, still, calm, the way I'd stood on the tarmac years ago in a storm waiting for the sky to clear. Finally, she muttered, "I didn't know." Blake didn't budge. "You should have asked before you mocked her." The look on his face wasn't anger. It was disappointment, the kind that stings worse than shouting. She swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." The words came out small. I almost didn't recognize her voice. I gave her a polite nod, the same kind you'd give a stranger on a bus. "It's fine." But it wasn't. Everyone there knew it wasn't. One of Blake's teammates broke the silence. "Wait, you're Revenant one?" I didn't answer. Blake did. "She is. She's the pilot who kept my men alive in that storm." Heads turned. A couple of the younger guys straightened up like they'd just realized the quiet woman they'd been teasing wasn't some desk jockey. "Holy hell," one of them said. That mission was legend. Tara's eyes flicked between us, her face pale now. "Blake, I didn't mean..." He cut her off. "I know, but maybe think before you talk next time." The conversation didn't recover. It shifted, awkward and subdued, like everyone was suddenly aware they'd been laughing at the wrong person all night. Blake walked over to me. "You should have told me. I didn't think it mattered." "It matters," he said quietly. "It always matters." End of 4. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small brass coin, edges worn smooth. He pressed it into my hand. "What's this?" I asked. He looked at me with that same calm authority from years ago. "Recognition. From my team. You earned it the night we didn't die." I turned the coin over. The words etched into the metal caught the porch light. "Honor through silence." "Fitting," I said softly. He smiled faintly. "You don't get to stay invisible anymore, Keller." "No." The way he said my name clear, certain, hit deeper than I expected. I slipped the coin into my pocket. "Guess the secret's out." He nodded toward Tara, who was now busy pretending to clean up plates that didn't need cleaning. Some secrets deserve to be. The night air carried the faint crash of waves beyond the dunes. The laughter had died out completely, replaced by murmurs and shifting chairs. Dad finally spoke, his voice rough from too many years of shouting over engines. "Monica, that true?" I turned to him. Every word. He looked down at his hands, calloused and trembling slightly. "You never said. You never asked." He nodded slowly, shame tightening his shoulders. "Guess I should've." Mom was next. Her hand went to her mouth, eyes wet but proud. "You kept it secret all this time?" "It wasn't mine to tell," I said. "It belonged to the people who made it home." For a long minute, nobody moved. Then Evan tugged at Tara's sleeve. "Mom, Aunt Monica's a hero?" Tara's lips parted, but nothing came out. Blake answered instead. "Yeah, kid. She's the reason your granddad still got friends to fish with." Evan's eyes widened. "That's cool." Kids have a way of cutting straight to the truth. No politics, no pride, just simple, honest awe. I crouched beside him. "Heroes are just people who do their job when it counts." He nodded like he understood every word. Maybe he did. When I stood again, Blake was watching me with that quiet understanding that only comes from shared history. He didn't need to say anything else. Neither did I. I grabbed my jacket from the back of a chair and started toward the beach. The night was cool, the air thick with salt and silence. Behind me, the murmurs picked up again, quieter this time. Careful, respectful. Blake caught up halfway down the path. "You're just going to leave like that?" "Like what? After dropping a truth bomb that rearranged half the family?" I smiled. "You say that like it's a bad thing." He laughed softly. "You always this composed after being disrespected for years?" "I fly for a living," I said. "You learn not to lose altitude over turbulence." He walked beside me until we reached the surf. The moonlight hit the water in streaks of silver. "You know," he said, "Roland, my old CO, he still talks about that mission. Says it was the closest he ever came to losing everything." I looked out at the horizon. He was the one who told me afterward that some people get applause and others just get the sound of engines. Guess I figured I was in the second category. Blake nodded. "Maybe. But sometimes the applause just takes a few years to reach you." The waves rolled in, slow and steady. He reached into his pocket again, pulled out another coin, older than the first. "This one's from Roland. He wanted to give it to Revenant One if he ever found her." I hesitated, then took it. The metal was warm from his hand. "Tell him she still remembers the frequency," I said. He grinned. "I'll do that." The tide crept closer, foam curling around our boots. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it was full. When I finally turned back toward the house, the lights looked softer. Tara was standing near the deck, watching, her arms folded, expression unreadable. I gave her a small nod. Not forgiveness exactly, just acknowledgement. She didn't return it, but she didn't look away either. Blake said quietly, "You know, I think she'll figure it out. Might take her a while." "Good," I said. "She's got time. I'm not going anywhere." And sick-tack. We walked back toward the yard, the smell of burnt charcoal and ocean mixing in the air. For once, nobody tried to make small talk. Nobody filled the silence. The world finally felt balanced again. Not fair maybe, but balanced. And for me, that was enough to breathe easy for the first time in years. The next morning came with that strange stillness that follows chaos. No hangover, no anger, just quiet. I sat on my porch with a cup of coffee, staring at the 2 challenge coins resting on the table. One was new, shiny brass from Blake. The other, older and worn, from Roland's team. The light caught on the engravings. One side read, "Service through silence," the other, "Hold the sky." They looked small in my hand, but they weighed more than any medal I'd ever earned. I hadn't planned to keep them. But somehow, letting go didn't feel right anymore. The sound of a car pulling up broke the calm. Blake's truck. I didn't move. He climbed out, still in uniform, and walked up the steps like a man who'd already rehearsed what he needed to say. He stopped beside the porch railing. "Didn't think you'd be up this early." "Habit," I said. "Pilots wake with the Sunday or guilt." He smiled faintly. "Last night got heavy." Understatement. He leaned against the post, silent for a few beats. "Roland called me this morning. He wants to see you." I looked up from my cup. "Roland Butler?" "Yeah. He heard what happened. He said if you'll meet him, he's got something to return." I almost laughed. "What, the apology I never got 10 years ago?" Blake's expression stayed steady. "Maybe that too." We drove in silence. The base housing near Little Creek looked the same as always. Tidy lawns, flags out front, Neighbors waving like nothing bad ever happens behind their doors. Roland's house sat near the water, modest, white siding faded by years of salt and wind. When he opened the door, his posture still had that commanding presence even retirement couldn't erase. "Commander Keller," he said, voice rough but respectful. "Captain Butler," I replied. He gestured us inside. His living room was lined with photos, young men in camo, a framed seal trident, and one black and white picture of him beside a helicopter, both grinning and exhausted. He pointed to it. "That was after a night I thought I'd never see daylight again. You were on the other end of that radio." I stayed quiet. He picked up a folder from the coffee table and handed it over. "I found this when I cleaned out my office. I thought you should have it." It was my mission report, Operation Revenant. Redacted lines everywhere, but my call sign was still visible. Night Warden. He sighed, the kind that comes from years of pride tangled with regret. "I thought staying silent would protect you. The higher-ups said keeping it quiet was best for everyone. But the truth? It protected me, my reputation, my sons. It made it easier for people to see us as the heroes." I didn't interrupt. Roland looked at me, his eyes tired but clear. "You deserved better than that." For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel anger, just recognition. Blake stayed by the window, watching the bay. Roland continued, voice lower now. "We owe you more than medals. You gave us years with our families. You gave Zach a father, and me," he trailed off. "You gave me time I didn't deserve." He reached into his pocket and pulled out another coin, old, scratched, but polished from years of being held. "This belonged to my team. We kept it for the day we could thank you properly." I took it, feeling the grooves under my thumb. "Thank you," he said quietly. The words landed heavy but right. I nodded. "You don't owe me anything." He shook his head. "That's where you're wrong. I owe you truth. And my son owes you respect." Lex. We sat in silence after that. Outside, the wind picked up, rippling the water. When I stood to leave, Roland followed me to the door. "You ever think about how funny life is?" he said. "We spent years serving the same flag, fighting for the same values, but it takes a barbecue to remind us what they actually mean." I smiled faintly. "Honor doesn't pick its setting, Captain." He chuckled, a low, tired sound. "No, it doesn't. Sometimes it just shows up wearing flip-flops, holding a beer." "Oh," Blake grinned behind him. "Sounds about right." We left the house as the sun broke through the clouds, streaks of light cutting through the gray. The drive back was quiet. Halfway down the coast road, Blake said. He meant every word. "I know." He glanced over. "So what now?" "I don't know. Maybe I stop pretending I'm invisible." "Good plan." We stopped by the beach. The tide was rolling in, steady and sure. Blake took off his boots and walked to the edge of the surf. "You ever think about how silence works both ways?" "Explain." He looked out at the horizon. "In our line of work, silence keeps people alive, but sometimes it also keeps them from healing." I joined him, waves soaking into the cuffs of my jeans. "You're not wrong." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and handed it to me. It was a mission log mine, copied from the official archive. He'd gotten it through the right channels. Across the bottom, under "Acknowledged by Command," Roland had written in pen, "For Commander Keller, Revenant 1. You held the sky so we could live under it." My throat tightened. That's poetic for a man who once said words were weakness. Blake laughed softly. "Retirement changes people." I looked out over the water again. The horizon blurred between sea and sky, endless and level. "Funny thing," I said. "The ocean doesn't care who gets the credit. It just keeps moving." Yeah, he said. "But sometimes it carries the right names back to shore." We stood there, the surf washing over our footprints until they disappeared. When we finally walked back to the truck, the coins in my pocket clinked softly with each step. A quiet, steady rhythm that matched the sound of the waves. For the first time in years, that sound didn't remind me of what I'd lost. It reminded me of what I'd earned. Honor doesn't always come with ceremony. Sometimes, it just arrives in the form of silence finally broken the right way. The sun dipped lower, turning the water gold. Blake started the truck, but neither of us spoke on the way back. There was nothing left to explain, nothing left to prove. The noise had finally stopped, and in its place was something better, peace that didn't need words. The ceremony wasn't supposed to feel personal. These things rarely do. You show up, stand in uniform, shake a few hands, and try not to think about the years that brought you there. But that morning, standing on the runway at NAS Pensacola, the air felt heavier, thicker somehow, like it was trying to tell me this wasn't just another formality. Rows of folding chairs faced the hangar doors, sunlight slicing across the polished floor. A brass band tuned up in the corner, and the smell of jet fuel drifted through the open bay. I adjusted the crease on my sleeves, the same way I had 100 times before. Habit hides nerves. But when the announcer's voice came over the loudspeaker, "Commander Monica Keller, Navy Flight Operations, Joint Rescue Coordination," I felt my stomach tighten. My name. Not my call sign. Not Night Warden. My name. Applause rippled through the hangar. It sounded distant, like something happening to someone else. I stepped forward, heels striking in perfect rhythm. The Admiral shook my hand. "Commander Keller, your actions during multiple joint operations reflect extraordinary leadership, courage, and precision under pressure. You've made the Navy proud." He nodded. "Thank you, sir. Your father's here today," he added quietly, glancing toward the crowd. "He looks proud." I turned my head just enough to see. There he was, Frank Keller, standing awkwardly in a borrowed sport coat, hair combed back like it was still 1985. Mom stood beside him, smiling so hard it almost hurt to look at. And behind them, Roland Butler, Blake's old CO, in full dress uniform, ribbons faded, posture still perfect. He hadn't told me he was coming. When the Admiral pinned the medal to my chest, the band started playing again. The clapping grew louder, but the only thing I could hear was the echo of waves in my memory, the same rhythm that had carried me through every flight, every storm. After the ceremony, people lined up for pictures. Reporters asked polite questions. I gave polite answers. I'd learned a long time ago that truth doesn't need an audience, it just needs to exist. When the crowd began to thin, Roland approached. "You make the uniform look better than any of us ever did," he said. I smiled. "Don't exaggerate, Captain." He chuckled. "Old habits." Then more quietly, "You deserved this a long time ago. Better late than never." Hour. He reached into his coat pocket and handed me a small, worn envelope. Inside was a photo, black and white, grainy, edges curled. A younger Roland stood beside a helicopter, his arm around a pilot whose face was washed out by sunlight. "Never got her name," he said. "Now I know why." I studied the photo for a long moment. We were all just doing our jobs. He nodded, but his eyes stayed fixed on me. "Some jobs change everything." End quote. Behind him, Blake appeared, no uniform this time, just jeans and a button-down, sleeves rolled. He looked proud but also strangely quiet, like he was carrying something heavier than words. Roland clapped his shoulder. "You brought her here. You make sure she knows this wasn't luck. It was respect catching up." "I think she gets it," Blake said. Roland gave a final salute. I returned it, crisp and silent. He turned and walked away, his silhouette shrinking against the bright hangar doors. When he was gone, Blake said, "He doesn't go to these things. Not for anyone." "I know," I said. "Then you also know this means something." I nodded. "It does." We stood there a while, neither of us speaking. The noise of the band had faded into casual chatter. The hangar lights glinted off the metal on my chest, but I didn't touch it. Blake finally said, "You ever think about what comes next?" I looked around the hangar, the jets, the people milling about like clockwork. "I think about not needing to prove anything anymore." That's a start. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Tara. "Saw the broadcast. You looked amazing. I didn't know how much you'd done. I'm sorry, Monday. For everything." It was short, honest, enough. I typed back, "We're good." Then I put the phone away. Later, after the crowd cleared, I drove down the coastal highway with the windows open. The metal glinted faintly from the passenger seat. The air smelled like salt and burnt metal. It wasn't peaceful exactly, but it was real. Halfway home, I saw Roland's truck parked at a small overlook by the bay. He was sitting on the hood, staring out at the water. I pulled over and joined him. He didn't turn when I climbed up beside him. "Thought you'd be celebrating," he said. "I don't really do confetti." He smirked. "Didn't think so." He reached into his pocket again and handed me a folded report. The header read, "Operation Revenant. Post, Action Summary." My name was still redacted, but across the margin, in his handwriting, were 3 words, "No more silence." I held it, feeling the paper flutter slightly in the wind. He said, "I thought silence would protect you. I was wrong. It only protected my ego." "Yeah," I said quietly. You and half the planet. He smiled at that. A weary, genuine smile. You think your sister's proud now? I think she's learning what pride's supposed to mean. Action. He nodded toward the water. So what now, Commander? I stared out at the horizon where the bay met the sky. Now I stop hiding behind my own quiet. He watched me for a moment, then stood. Then I'd say your mission's not over. It's just changed coordinates. He started back toward his truck, his steps slow but sure. I stayed a few minutes longer, watching the tide roll in. The metal caught a flash of sunlight, blinding for just a second. When it faded, the world looked sharper. As I got back in my car, my phone buzzed again this time. A message from an unknown number. Blake gave me your call sign, Revenant One. I just wanted to say thank you. My dad came home because of you. No name. Just gratitude from someone who'd grown up with a father instead of a folded flag. I didn't reply. Some things didn't need answers. I put the car in gear and headed toward the sound of the sea. The wind carried the faint echo of distant engines, steady, unbroken, like a heartbeat that had finally found its rhythm again. By the time summer rolled around again, the Keller backyard felt like an entirely different world. The old jokes were gone, the laughter sounded warmer, and even the smell of the grill didn't carry that sting anymore. Dad was flipping burgers, humming along to some old country song, while Mom arranged lemonade glasses like she was preparing for royalty. I showed up late again, but this time, nobody minded. Tara was already there, barefoot, hair pulled back, helping Evan set up chairs. She looked up when I came through the gate, her smile small but real. Hey, Commander, she said. Hey yourself, I said. Promotion looks good on you. She rolled her eyes. You're never going to let that nickname die, are you? Not until you earn it, I said, and for the first time in years, she actually laughed. Blake was tending the grill, wearing a faded seal t-shirt and a baseball cap turned backward. He gave me a nod that said everything words didn't need to. Respect, familiarity, peace. Evan spotted me next. He'd grown taller since last summer, all long limbs and curiosity. He ran up, nearly tripping over a lawn chair, holding something in his palm. Look, he said, grinning. Grandpa gave me this. I leaned down. In his hand was Roland's old seal coin, edges smooth from years of wear. The sunlight hit it just right, and the gold flared in his small fingers. You know what that means? I asked. He nodded proudly. It's for people who didn't quit when it was hard. Good answer, I said. He looked at me with that open, eager expression kids have when they want to understand the world. Dad says you flew through storms to save people. I smiled. I just didn't leave them behind. He thought about that, then nodded solemnly. Dad says that's bravery. No, I said softly. That's choice. From the porch, Dad called, Food's ready, and everyone gathered around the long table. The old picnic bench had been replaced with something sturdier oak, polished, solid, kind of like the family sitting around it. Mom passed out plates. Blake poured iced tea. Tara kept the conversation light, talking about Evan's school and how he joined the robotics club. Nobody mentioned the old fights. Nobody needed to. The silence between us wasn't full of tension anymore. It was full of understanding. At one point, Tara leaned toward me, her voice quieter than usual. I never thanked you properly. For what? For not giving up on me, she said. You could have walked away after that night. Honestly, I would have deserved it. You did fine on your own, I said. You just needed to realize there was more than one kind of strength. Her eyes glistened for a moment before she blinked it away. Blake said you're helping train younger pilots now. Yeah. I guess someone thought I had experience worth passing on. Good, she said, smiling faintly. They're lucky. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time in years, she didn't seem like my rival. She looked like what she'd always been. My sister, human and flawed and trying. Blake caught my eye from across the table. He was watching us with quiet satisfaction. He didn't say anything, but his expression said enough. This is what you fought for. After lunch, the group scattered. Evan and his friends ran through the yard with sparklers, their laughter echoing across the grass. Dad fell asleep in a lawn chair. Mom cleaned dishes while humming something soft and tuneless. Tara and I sat on the porch, sipping lemonade. The air was thick with summer warmth, and for once it didn't feel heavy. You ever miss it? She asked suddenly. Flying, I mean. Every day, I said. But not the way people think. It's not the danger or the adrenaline. It's the silence. Up there, everything makes sense. Down here, it's messy. She nodded. You're good at messy now. Getting better, I said. She smiled, then turned toward the yard. Evan was chasing a butterfly, laughing so hard he could barely stand upright. Tara watched him for a while, then said, "You know, he keeps that coin by his bed. Says it reminds him to be brave." "Good," I said. "He'll need that someday." She glanced at me, hesitating. "You think he'll want to join the Navy?" "Maybe," I said. "If he does, he'll understand both sides, the fight and the cost." The sun started to dip lower, painting everything in gold. Blake joined us on the porch, wiping his hands on a towel. "You two look like peace talks finally worked." Tara smirked. "You're lucky I didn't call in air support." "Too late," I said. "She already surrendered." Blake laughed, that low, easy laugh that made the air feel lighter. We sat there for a while, just watching the kids, the fading light, the simple rhythm of family. For once, no one was trying to win the conversation. No one needed to be right. After a while, Tara said, "You know, I used to think silence meant weakness. Now I think it's strength when it's earned." I nodded. "That's the only kind worth having." She smiled, leaning back against the porch post. "Guess we both grew up." "Guess so." "Oh." Blake reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a polished silver pin, shaped like wings. "Picked this up for you," he said. "Figured your collection could use one more." I took it, turning it over in my hand. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he said simply. "For everything you've done for them, for us, for her." Tara gave him a soft smile. "He's better at gifts than apologies," she whispered. "I noticed," I said, and we all laughed. The wind shifted, bringing the sound of distant waves. The horizon glowed, the kind of light that makes you stop talking for a while just to take it in. When Evan ran back up the porch steps, holding the coin out to me again, I bent down. "Keep it safe, okay?" He nodded eagerly. "Always." Then, without thinking, I said, "One day, give it to someone who earns it." He smiled like he already knew who that would be. The last bit of sunlight flashed against the coin, scattering gold across his face, and for that 1 second, everything the years of silence, the storms, the laughter felt perfectly, quietly whole. Tara watched him, then looked at me. "You realize, don't you?" she said. "This whole family's different because of you." I shrugged. "We're all just learning to listen." Blake leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Then I'd say the mission was a success." "Yeah," I said, smiling. "This one finally had a clean landing." And as the cicadas hummed and the night began to fold over us, I realized something simple but certain: honor doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it just sits quietly at a table, surrounded by people who finally understand what it means. 12 years later, the road back to Jacksonville felt both familiar and foreign. The pines still leaned toward the coast, the air still carried salt, but the noise in my head, the one that used to sound like doubt, was gone. The old Keller house stood where it always had, weathered by wind and time, but still holding. I parked by the gate and killed the engine. The front porch was different now, painted, sturdy, lined with framed photos. There was Dad in his shop, Mom laughing at some backyard barbecue, Tara and Blake shaking hands with veterans at a fundraiser. And right in the middle, a photo of me in flight gear, helmet tucked under my arm, sunlight bouncing off the visor. Beneath it, handwritten words read, "Revenant 1, Family of the Brave." Inside, the air smelled like cedar and old coffee. On the mantel sat 2 coins, mine once, now polished, encased in glass. Evan was standing in front of them, wiping fingerprints off the frame. He'd grown tall, shoulders squared, that calm confidence that comes from knowing where you come from. He turned when he saw me. "Aunt Monica?" I smiled. "Didn't think you'd recognize me without the flight suit." He laughed. "You're in half the family photos. Kinda hard to forget." He stepped aside so I could see the display better. Next to the coins was Roland's old seal cap and a folded flag. His handwriting on a small plaque read, "To the ones who never left anyone behind. You keep this place in better shape than your mom ever did," I said. He grinned. "Mom says it's my job now. She and Dad are running the outreach center most days. Veteran stuff. Helps keep him sane." "Good," I said. "Your dad's not the sitting still type." Evan nodded toward the porch. "Grandpa's out back. Says he's waiting for you." I followed the creak of the screen door and found him sitting in the old rocking chair, cane leaning against the rail, his navy cap still on his head. The years had bent his back, but not his pride. "Still wearing that hat, huh?" I said. He smiled without opening his eyes. It's the only one that fits the stories. I sat beside him. The chair next to his still had the faint burn mark from when Tara spilled mulled wine years ago. You look good, Dad. Liar, he said. I look like I wrestled time and lost. Time wins every round, I said. He chuckled, then nodded toward the porch wall where a new frame hung. Inside was a newspaper clipping, local pilot honored for distinguished naval service. The picture showed me shaking hands with the admiral at Pensacola. Your mother made me frame that, he said. Said I owed you a wall. I didn't need a wall. Maybe not, but you earned one anyway. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, just full. After a while, he said, You know, I used to think service was about toughness. Turns out it's about steadiness. You taught me that. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Sometimes the simplest acknowledgments are the loudest ones. The sky above was a clear, hard blue. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the rumble of engines. Evan came running out onto the porch. You hear that? Before I could answer, 3T45 seconds streaked across the sky in tight formation, white trails slicing the blue clean. The sound rolled over the yard like thunder, deep and steady. Evan's face lit up. That's you, right? They're your squad? Used to be, I said. Now it's their turn. He looked up, shading his eyes. You ever get scared doing that? Every time, I said. But fear's not the enemy. It's the thing that keeps you careful. 1. He nodded like he was memorizing it. When the jets disappeared into the clouds, he turned back to me. Dad says bravery runs in the Keller blood. I smiled. No, it runs in choice. That made him pause. What do you mean? Courage isn't something you're born with. It's something you decide on. Every time things get hard, you get to choose if you'll stand up or stay quiet. He thought about it for a long second, then said, So, it's like flying. Exactly, I said. The sky doesn't hold you up, you hold it. From the doorway, Tara called, Dinner's ready, and Mom made her famous potato salad again. Dad groaned, Lord help us. Evan laughed and went inside. I stayed a moment longer, watching the last bit of jet trail fade into the horizon. Dad leaned back, eyes half closed. You ever miss it? Every day, I said. He smiled. Then you're still doing it right. I looked at him, the lines of his face softened by light. The man who'd once told me to find a safer job now wore a small navy pin on his collar with my squadron number on it. Time had a way of teaching people the things words couldn't. When we went inside, the table was crowded. Blake sat at the head, passing plates. Tara moved between conversations. Mom fussed over everyone's drinks. Evan took the chair next to me, still holding Roland's coin in his palm. Halfway through the meal, Tara raised her glass. To family, she said, and to the ones who kept us together, even when we didn't deserve it. Everyone looked at me. I shook my head. Don't make me cry over potato salad. Laughter rolled across the table, genuine, easy, the kind that makes a house feel alive. After dinner, as the sun dipped behind the trees, I stepped out to the porch again. Evan joined me, coin still in his hand. He turned it over, letting the last light catch the metal. You know, he said, I think I want to fly someday. End quote. Then do it for the right reasons, I said. Not for glory, not to prove anything. Do it because you love the sky. He smiled. You'll teach me? If you're willing to listen more than you talk. He laughed. Mom says I got that from you. Then maybe there's hope for you yet. The screen door creaked behind us. Blake stepped out, beer in hand, eyes on the sky. You know, for someone who's retired, you're still running things around here. Old habits, I said. He smirked. They suit you. We watched the sky together, streaks of pink and orange fading into blue. The air smelled like salt and charcoal, the last trace of the day holding steady before night took over. Inside, I could hear Tara telling Mom a story, Dad laughing louder than he had in years. Evan stood beside me, coin glinting in his hand. You think I'll ever earn one of these? He asked. I looked at him, young, eager, untested. You already did, I said. You just don't know it yet. Oh. He didn't ask how. He just nodded, like some part of him already understood. The wind picked up, rustling through the trees. The sound blended with distant waves and the hum of life inside the house. For a long moment, I let the quiet settle, in the kind of quiet that didn't need to be filled. When I looked up, the sky was darkening, but not empty. The last faint contrail still shimmered high above, a thin white line cutting through blue, fading but never gone. I touched the coin in my pocket and smiled. Some things you don't hold to remember where you've been. You hold them to remind yourself how far you've flown. And as the porch light flickered on and laughter drifted through the open door, I realized the truth I'd been chasing for years had finally landed. Silence wasn't the absence of voice. It was the sound of peace, earned the hard way, and shared quietly among those who never needed to shout to be heard.